Here's our Week 10 contest. We have number 1 Alabama at number 3 LSU, Death Valley at night. Everybody knows the biggest game of the year. Number 6 Georgia at number 9 Kentucky, Kroger Field down in Lexington. Oh, by the way, Breeders' Cup's going on. Oh, by the way, Mark May and Lou Holtz are going to be in town for Davos in the Bluegrass at the Castle. It is the biggest weekend since 1950. And I'm going to tell you, number 13 West Virginia Mountaineers are at 17 Texas. You know, fortunes change. You know, it's amazing. We didn't pick Texas, Oklahoma last week. We thought that was just going to be a blowout. They're going to take care of business. Big change there. And number 4, Notre Dame are going to play unranked Northwestern up in Evanston, Illinois. I'm sure that weather's going to be peachy. So let's start off our first game. Number 1 Alabama at LSU. As we know, 83rd meeting since first one happened 1895. This might surprise you, maybe not. Alabama leads 52-25 with 5 ties. And this is pretty much okay. Who's number 1 in the SEC West? Who's going to go to the SEC Championship? 1 versus 3 in Death Valley. And I think this game comes down to can LSU get to the fourth quarter? If Tua is still on the field in the fourth quarter, it might be like Rocky II when they rang the bell and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, stand by for World War III." You remember that? Because no one's ever gotten them to the fourth quarter. We're going to see what's going to happen. Mark, lead us through Death Valley right now. Talk to us about Saturday night.
First and foremost, there won't be any excuses by either team. They should both be healthy. They're both coming off of byes. Tua Tagovailoa has the knee injury, but he's healthy right now. Jalen Hurts is healthy right now. If you look at this Alabama offense, no one's really slowed them down. It's pick your poison. Are you going to stop the run with Damian Harris or Najee Harris? Are you going to stop the pass with Jerry Jeudy in that fine passing course? And now Irv Cross Jr., the tight end, is doing a terrific job catching the football. How do you stop this offense? You can't stop the quarterback because they're too deep there. So if you're Dave Aranda, the defensive coordinator for LSU, you've got to decide what you're going to do. You're going to load up the box and stop the run, or you've got to put 3 or 4 or 5 guys deep to try to stop the pass and confuse Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I think the key is they're going to try to play balanced defensively, but that's not going to be enough to stop this offense because they keep coming at you like waves. That's why they're the Alabama Crimson Tide, coach. They're going to come at you like the ocean, wave after wave after wave. They're going to roll over LSU in this game. It's not going to be close. It's not going to be pretty. Tagovailoa is going to be on the sidelines in the fourth quarter because he's only got to play in the fourth quarter once in his career, and that's last year's national championship game. Alabama wins 40-16.
Well, there's never been a horse that can't be rode. There's never been a rider that can't be thrown. LSU has a chance in this football game, Mark, but I agree with you about Alabama being so explosive. They have 5 receivers averaging over 17 yards a catch. And the thing that Tua does, his quarterback ranking is 238. I mean, that is so much higher than anybody else. He's been unbelievable. And what they do, they run the play-action pass, and where he is not just his ability to throw, his ability to make decisions. He can decide whether he's going to give the ball, whether he's going to throw it. However, the offensive line at Alabama is not as aggressive. They don't come off the ball and maul you like they did in years past. Alabama's defense very good. They have 12 interceptions. That's very high for the few number of games they played. But here's what LSU has to do to win the football game, Mark. Go play your normal defense. Do not let them run after they catch. Alabama will not beat LSU by throwing and catching. If I'm playing against Alabama and I have LSU's personnel, because let's remember, LSU has some great defensive backs that can match up with the great receivers from Alabama, man to man. Make no mistake about it. As a matter of fact, I will tell you, I got Greedy Williams. Greedy Williams is flat great. What is going to happen, though, the great linebacker from LSU got called for targeting in the second half last week, and he will not be able to play in the first half against Alabama. This guy's an All-American. I hope the game's not over by the time he gets into the game. But you mark it down. If Alabama cannot run after they catch, LSU has a very good chance to get in the fourth quarter. I don't think they can stop them and worry just about runs after the catch. If you're coaching against Alabama, I don't care how many times they throw it, they will not beat us throwing and catching. They beat us because they run after they catch. If we stop that, we have a chance to win. But I'm going to pick Alabama 38-14, but I will not be surprised if LSU wins this football game.
38-14, but you're not surprised if they're going to win the football game, so they're losing by 24 points.
Because unless they're listening to this TV show and saying, you know, that Coach Holtz is right. We've got to stop them after the catch. And if they do that, I'll change my prediction.
Coach, you in week 1, you ended your predictions with the LSU Miami and said, you know what, I really think that LSU could win. I'm going to pick Miami, but I think LSU could win. You said that. Look what happened. They took them to the woodshed. So, here we go. Our next game is almost as big as that one. You've got number 6 Georgia coming into Lexington to play the Kentucky Wildcats. You have the SEC East Championship game right there in the Bluegrass on a huge, huge weekend. I say 1950 because that's 1950. Kentucky won the SEC Championship in football. Had a coach named Bryant. Heard he was pretty good at some other school too. But number 6 Georgia, number 6 Georgia, 7-1, and they lost to LSU behind the woodshed. Kentucky's also 7-1. They lost to Texas A&M in overtime. You got big, strong, tall quarterback Jake Fromm. You know, he looks a little bit like that Drew Lock guy out there at Missouri. Kentucky took care of that. We're going to see how that goes. Kentucky's about running the ball and about playing defense and try to win by a slow beatdown. Georgia has got some big plays, and they're much improved from Florida. They showed they were much improved during that Florida game. But my question to both of y'all is, they going to mix it up, put Justin Fields in, or are they just going to kind of keep doing what they're doing? And the Wildcats, you know what? They threw for 200 yards. That's a big deal. You know what? Maybe they can throw and run now. What's going to happen down in Lexington, Mark?
I'll tell you what, in this game, you can always say you can throw the record books out the window, throw the stats out the window, and everything else. Guess what? This is the game that Mark Stoops and Kentucky have probably been waiting for throughout his entire career, and I'm going to tell you why. If you look at Georgia, this is a football team that's just coming off the big victory against Florida, and everybody's patting them on the back. Yeah, you crushed Florida in the second half. That's our big rivalry game. That's the game we look forward to every year. It's a big cocktail party out there. You guys did a terrific job. You're riding high. If you look at Kentucky, they struggled in this football game all game until the fourth quarter. They came out and found a way to win, to grind a way to win. They're lying in the weeds right now. It's the perfect time for Mark Stoops and his Kentucky team to get going. Because right now, if you're Kirby Smart, do you stop the run? Do you put 8 and 9 in the box and you try to stop Benny Snell? Or now you've got a quarterback that can throw the football, that's proven he can push the football down the field. It's dealer's choice for this Kentucky offense. If I'm Kentucky, I come out throwing the ball to get Georgia on their heels in this football game. I think Kentucky right now is rolling. They're finding ways to win. There's always that team every year, Coach, that you look at and say, nah, they're not doing it pretty. How do they win that game? Oh, they shouldn't have won that game. But each and every week when you look at the scoreboard at the end of the game, Kentucky 24, Georgia 21.
I give Kentucky an awful lot of credit. I mean, it's been a marvelous year for them. And the good thing is, in the last game they played Louisville. Louisville's not very, very good this year. So usually that would be a challenge for Kentucky. But, you know, Kentucky has not given up more than 20 points in a game and all the entire year. And their one loss was 20-14, I think, A&M in overtime. However, for the last 3 weeks, Mark, Kentucky's not scored more than 15 points. They were lucky. They special teams very, very good. I think that Georgia will win the football game. And let me tell you, this is the biggest game, and we all said for years, in Kentucky. But they've never been there before. They don't know how to always handle that, Mark. So you have to learn how to compete. Then you have to learn how to win. Then you have to learn how to handle winning. In the big environment, you get caught up with all the lights and all the anticipation, the fans, and everybody's calling you for tickets, and all your buddies in high school want to have a chance to visit with you before the game. And so I don't think Kentucky will be able to handle that pressure and that limelight, whereas Georgia's been there before. Jake Fromm's been there before. I look for Georgia to beat Kentucky 27-14, but that will not diminish the outstanding year that Kentucky's had.
I'm going to go back in history a little bit to 1982 when there's a Washington Redskin coach against a Miami Dolphin coach, Don Shula, a Hall of Famer. The Redskins hadn't been there. They don't know how to win. They don't know how to get over the hump, but they won the Super Bowl. They beat Don Shula with Joe Gibbs at the helm. This can happen. It's happened before. History repeats itself. I'm looking for Kentucky in the upset.
Now, don't get me wrong, Mark, but Kentucky doesn't have the Hogs, and you were part of them in that offensive line. Let me tell you something else. That wasn't the first big game. You had a lot of big games to win the conference championship to be able to get there. You had been there. You've been able to handle it. We'll see, Mark. We'll see.
Well,
You're
Coach,
upsetting me. I want to tell you, I'm losing my emotions.
Coach Kentucky offensive line coach John Schlarman from Fort Thomas Islands. He's got some hogs. Remember, not big hogs, but he's got some hogs. But this 72nd meeting is going to be exciting. And Kentucky's played the number one team there before and beat them in 2007, and I was there in 3 or 4 overtimes. They beat number one LSU at the time. But we'll see how that's going to go, and we know it's going to be exciting. But is it going to be exciting as number 13 West Virginia is going at number 17 Texas? Now, we thought this would be even bigger because Texas, we didn't even talk about them. They go to Oklahoma State last week, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. They got beat, and it's the 8th meeting for these two. Goes back to 1956, and West Virginia has a 4-3 lead. But West Virginia is not out of the Big 12 race. They got one loss, and they got to keep winning, but they've got Texas. And then, after that, they got Oklahoma State, and then they've got Oklahoma, whereas Texas is going to go to Texas Tech, then Iowa State. Oh, by the way, a little giant killer there. So West Virginia put a beat down on Baylor. Texas barely beat Baylor. We'll see how this is going to go. Mark, talk about things in Austin, Texas.
Well, if you put Texas's schedule on a curve, they lose to Maryland at the beginning of the season, then it goes up, they win a bunch of games. Then the last couple of weeks it's going back down. They struggle against Baylor, which is a team that West Virginia just blew out. And then if you look at last week at Oklahoma State, they get beat. This is a team defensively that can't stop the long ball. And defensively, they're going to see a lot of it in this game with Will Grier. If you look at West Virginia offensively, they have not one, not two, but 3 wide receivers with 500 yards or more receiving. That's going to be the killer in this game. It's going to be up to the offensive line of West Virginia to protect Will Grier long enough to throw the ball vertically. You've got David Sills, Marcus Sims, Gary Jennings Jr. at wide receiver. Those are all 3 tall wide receivers that can go vertical with a football, that can stretch the defense. And for Texas, when they play offenses like this, they definitely struggle because they found out last week against Oklahoma State, this is a more potent offense at West Virginia than Oklahoma State have. I think Texas goes down in this game. West Virginia wins at 37-30 because of West Virginia's offense. Texas is playing extremely well on defense, but West Virginia's offense is lights out, Coach.
I believe that you watch the games on Saturday, but some of your logic leads me to believe maybe you don't, because let's look at Oklahoma State, Mark. 31 points the first half. How many did they get the second half? Well, actually, what happened was Texas shut them down. Matter of fact, Texas would have won that football game had the quarterback not kept the ball on 2 different occasions, one to score the go-ahead touchdown and the other one to pick up a critical first down. I think Texas is a very, very good football team. Yeah, they did not play very well last week. They have to win this game to have a rematch against Oklahoma. And I know that the 2 teams going to be in the final is going to be Oklahoma, and it's going to be West Virginia, it's going to be Texas. I personally believe it's going to be Texas. We're going to have a reenactment of the shootout, the Red River rivalry. I look for Texas to win the game 31-30. Everything you say about West Virginia, I agree. And Texas does have trouble playing the deep ball, Mark, and the reason is because of the technique they use. Instead of pinning the receiver on the sideline playing the ball, they wait for the receiver, and then they try to knock it out of his hands when they can, and that constantly leads to pass interference calls. So despite that, I think that Texas, an earlier quarterback, will run the football that's at home, and there's a big difference when you're playing at home than when you're playing on the road. Texas to win the game 31-30.
I always like your logic about Texas played great in the second half and Oklahoma State put up 31 points in the first half. How many quarters in a football game?
I don't remember, Mike,
I think
but
there's
I believe
4, but
it
at the end of the game, what's the scoreboard say?
I agree. Okay, we'll see what happens in this, Mark. But I want to tell you, you have to look that Texas was not ready to play that football game. Whatever they were doing on defense, they made the adjustment. They shut them out basically the second half. They dominated the game. When you look at what Texas did the second half, you think this game's over. It wasn't. Texas is a very, very good football team. They're very well coached. They have a good offensive line, a good defensive line. I worry about their secondary playing the ball in the air, but being at home, Texas will find a way to win this football game. The spirit is back, the pride's back at Texas, and they will prevail. I hate to say that against the state I was born in. I cheer for West Virginia, but I got to be honest, Mark. My grandson played at Texas.
Well, Coach, my mother-in-law just showed up at my house, so there ain't no way I'm pulling against the Mountaineers. Plus, they have the number 1 scoring defense in the Big 12. Could be a good game down there in Austin. But our last and 4th game of the Week 10 college football show, I think it's a bigger game than people think or give it credit. Number 4, Notre Dame, 8-0, undefeated, playing unbelievable football, is going to play an evening game at 7:15 in Evanston, Illinois. Ryan Field against Northwestern, because Northwestern right now is 5-3, but they're 5-1 in the Big Ten West. And you know what? Do they have national championship aspirations? Yeah, the freshmen do for maybe their junior or senior year, but it's not happening this year. But can they go play and still win the Big Ten if they keep winning? Yes, they can. So this is a pretty exciting game, and you know they win ugly. They play ugly the whole season. Sometimes they win. 3 of them they've lost. So Notre Dame, different story. Ian Book comes in. It's like, you know, part 2. So you're going to say, is it the Ian Book Notre Dame or is it the Wimbush Notre Dame? But this Ian Book Notre Dame with Dexter Williams, because Dexter Williams was on a sabbatical, you know, didn't play for a little while. They're on fire. They're on fire. So what's the Fighting Pat Fitzgeralds from Northwestern going to do? We're going to see. Mark, talk to us about this one.
Oh, you said it all, Kevin. Northwestern has no chance. Ian Book, Notre Dame, they'll bring all those Notre Dame fans over to Evanston. Brian Kelly comes in with a team that just beat Navy, big nationally televised game. But let me tell you this, Coach. They're traveling all the way back from San Diego after a tough game against Navy. You know what Navy does? They run that AAA option and they cut players on defense. Guess what? Notre Dame's going to be soaking in their wounds. They're going to be ice bagging it all weekend long. They think they're looking at Northwestern. Oh, it's a team with Thorson, a quarterback. He's got 10 interceptions, only 10 touchdown passes. They can't compete with a great Fighting Irish. But I'm going to tell you this. Pat Fitzgerald has Notre Dame and the Fighting Irish exactly where he wants them. He's got them in his own phone booth right at home. Notre Dame's going to overlook this football team because they're going to say, Northwestern are not very good. Like you said before, Coach, they lost to Duke, they lost to Akron. They can't compete with us, but Northwestern's going to find a way to win it. Pat Fitzgerald, they're going to win it ugly, Coach. They're going to win it on special teams, they're going to win it on defense, and they're going to win it on turnovers. And guess what? When this game's close in the fourth quarter, you're not going to get those Notre Dame home football calls by the official. Northwestern's going to get them, and they're going to upset Notre Dame 32-29.
You sound like a comedian out of work, Mark. A logic that you use. The officials, number one, they're Big Ten officials. I believe they'll be the ACC officials, Mark.
Yes,
visiting
Notre
team,
Dame officials.
The ACC officials. But Notre Dame, when you're in a title race like that, you play every game. I mean, you can't afford. And what we tell our football team, and this is true, every time you win a game, the next game becomes even bigger. The reason that this game is big is because Notre Dame beat Navy. After they beat Northwestern, the next game will be even big, playing Florida State. And then eventually, each time it gets bigger. Notre Dame pays attention to what they're doing. They also understand that when Eric Parseghian was at Northwestern, he beat Notre Dame 4 years in a row, and finally Notre Dame hired Eric Parseghian, and that was the best move they made. I have great respect for Pat Fitzgerald. He's done a tremendous job. But they're not explosive enough on offense. They turn the ball over too much on defense, and Notre Dame will win the game, I think, 34-17, and I'm giving Northwestern credit for playing outstanding, playing at home. Notre Dame's not used to playing on the road, but the game will be at Soldier Field, I think, not at Northwestern Stadium. Notre Dame only plays 2 true away games, I believe, Southern Cal and Virginia Tech. But Notre Dame wins the game 34-17. And Mark, I'll give you a chance to get your money back, but it doesn't matter. I'm not betting you anymore because you don't pay anyway.
Well, this will be the 49th game, the first one happening in 1889, and Notre Dame leads this series 37-9-2, but Northwestern has won the last 2 meetings. The one before that was in 1995, Northwestern beat Notre Dame, and then in 2014, Northwestern beat Notre Dame. So you never know what's going to happen, Coach. We're all history majors here. We'll see how it's going to go. Now, that is our 4th game of our college football show contest, and there you have it. And it's going to be a big week 10 with our